So I find dating apps interesting because they're these little petri dishes, but also Skinner boxes, where people's behaviors are in these observable, objective bits that are easy to measure. But at the same time, people on them are being manipulated by the companies running the apps. And even though there's this inherent contradiction in them that the point of a dating app is to get off the dating app and meet someone nice, the goal from the perspective of the dating app as a business is to get you to spend more time and money on the app. So it seems as though they aren't incentivized for you to do the thing that you're supposed to be doing with the app. And I think it's pretty common knowledge at this point that this is, I would say, the main problem with the app. And yet people keep using them, myself included, which only adds to the mystique. So the point of this essay is that I went through some of the more recent research, and I'm going to tell you the interesting bits I found and what they might mean. So, as of 2025, more than 360 million people worldwide are using dating apps, but the users are faring worse by almost every psychological measure. Since 2022, Tinder's US monthly active users dropped from roughly 18 million to 11 million, but other dating apps like Hinge have seen growth. Dating app use is associated with increased loneliness, depression, anxiety, and psychological distress. One psychiatrist has theorized that one big reason for this increase is because the brain treats the relational uncertainty that is happening when a person uses the apps as a threat. When someone you've been chatting back and forth with suddenly goes quiet or their responses become vague, the attachment system activates, telling us something's wrong. Attachment theory was developed by psychoanalyst John Bowlby in the 1970s as a way of describing social and emotional development of children due to their interactions with their caregivers. And this leads to certain traits manifesting in adulthood. The four attachment styles are secure, anxious preoccupied, dismissive avoidant, and fearful avoidant. There's obviously a lot more detail to it, but there's lots of material you can read online if you want to learn some more about it. So the dating apps have made it easy to ghost people. You can click the unmatch button or simply just never respond to someone's message, and this creates a constant environment of uncertainty. When a person feels ignored, it manifests in lower self-esteem, a feeling of loss of control, and can make their life feel less meaningful. Anxiously attached individuals are highly sensitive to rejection, so experience a heightened preoccupation with their interpersonal connections, and that can lead to uncontrolled emotional swings. Avoidantly attached individuals fear closeness and retreat into ambiguity, allowing a semblance of connection while avoiding commitment. The dating app culture increases the problem because the culture has developed around playing it cool, responding slowly to messages, and being strategically ambiguous, which actually runs counter to how relationship building works in real life. Secure relationships are built on consistency, availability, responsiveness, reliability, and predictability. People who display these traits on the apps are dismissed because they're labeled as being too available and boring, despite research showing this type of person would make an ideal partner. The psychiatrist discussing this in the article suggested that if what people are doing on dating apps isn't working for them, they could try shifting their dating strategy, prioritizing clarity over uncertainty in their dating prospects, and work on developing relationships from a perspective of meaningful connection rather than insecure relating. On the topic of attachment styles, people with more attachment anxiety were found to generally have lower success on dating apps, as well as lowered perceived well-being after using the dating apps. That is, it made them feel worse about themselves. People with highly avoidant attachment style exhibit less dating app use and general romance seeking. In another study, participants who were ghosted reported having an ongoing emotional attachment to that person, compared to people who were explicitly rejected. Ghosted participants tended to monitor the target's social media and dating app status more often. What they experience is emotional pain with no closure. So I guess the takeaway from this is that if you want to reduce the chances of getting stalked, you might be better off confronting the person you want to break off from and explain to them you aren't interested and just be clear that the relationship is over. I know it's unpleasant and there's a lot of emotional labor involved, but the data shows it might be a better approach over the long term. On the topic of dating strategies, another article discusses a term they call the burned haystack dating as an approach for finding a good match. There was some reasonable advice there, specifically targeted at women, those points being limiting your time on dating apps to 10 minutes once or twice per day. Don't argue with people on the apps. Don't text endlessly. Try matching with people that live near you. It's mostly sensible stuff. But then the last item that they listed was to treat the process of dating like a job search. And I've definitely met people who follow that philosophy for sure. But this is just my perspective, but when you act like it's a job, it's really obvious that you're doing that. And I personally find it off-putting. Something that definitely needs to change about dating apps is that we need to make these spaces better by improving our own behavior. And I think it's critical we treat one another like real flesh and blood people. Do you want people you're dating to treat it like a job interview? Maybe you do, but I don't. I just don't think work energy is what you want when you're spending quality time with someone. Relationships should be more lighthearted, and a job mindset seems antithetical to spending time with someone you enjoy hanging out with. So next is an article from Fortune magazine discussing some stats from Bumble. In a survey, 70% of women reported dating app burnout, and 79% of Gen Z college students said they aren't even bothering with dating apps at all. People that are on the apps have become described as less authentic, and women are constantly solicited for dirty pictures and scams. Dating apps are also getting expensive from all the monetization, and although we can only guess about how they might be manipulating matches on the back end, some people have theories that the most attractive people are put into what they call rose jail on Hinge. And this is to make people romantically interested in them, to have to pay for these virtual roses to let them know that they really, really like them. So it's possible that those users aren't getting notified of regular likes anymore. But this is just speculation. If you're someone who works at these dating app companies or has some sort of insider knowledge, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. The app never clearly communicates any type of changes or manipulation. So if they are locking people out or changing things with the intent of getting people to pay, they're being vague about it, and I guess they think we're just supposed to figure it out. It's also possible some features like filters might be stopping likes and messages from reaching people if they don't meet the filter requirements, but I haven't seen anything in the research about that. One interesting statistic is that adults 65 and older are more likely to view online dating as effective in finding a partner. So I guess if you have a lonely parent, then that might be a good option for them. I discussed this next point in another video, but an interesting one is that men who score high in psychopathy and sexual desires report more mating success via dating apps. I did a whole video on corporate psychopathy, so check out that video if that's something that interests you, but psychopaths tend to spend above average amounts of time on social media and dating apps. And a related study specifically looked at the dark triad traits, so that's psychopathy, narcissism, and Machiavellianism, and it looked at men and women, found that sex among app users was more likely with people who are already in committed relationships. Male users reporting sex were more Machiavellian and sexually compulsive, and Machiavellian women were more likely to cheat using those dating apps. Another interesting bit is that psychopathic men and narcissistic women preferred to drink during dates. But of course, just because someone's drinking during a date doesn't mean that they're narcissistic or psychopathic. An interesting research paper from 2025 challenges the ideas of technological determinism, that growing consensus that dating apps are making people sad on a massive scale. The researcher argues that while dating apps do make people sad because of the commodification of intimacy, the people who are using the apps are not just passively being victimized by the apps and are instead expressing agency, and that once they recognize that the apps might not be functioning the way they advertised, they reappraise the relationship to the app, and then they enact some change, whether that be getting off the app, instead focusing on face-to-face interactions, or it might be a creative repurposing of the app, instead using it for a more specific purpose other than finding a relationship partner. Most often, this has been manifesting as using the app for a fun date or quick sex, and this seems to also have shaped the evolution of the apps themselves over time. So, as you may have noticed, much of the research seems to be specifically centered around women, And it seems to become a bigger concern of late that women consistently seem to have these terrible experiences with dating apps. 95% of the study participants had negative experiences, describing them as disappointing, frustrating, filled with deception, and lack of a serious intention. I'm sorry if this seems insensitive to the needs of men, but you just need to understand it's a very different dynamic between men and women on the apps. 2/3 of the app users are men, and the number of women seems to be continuing to shrink. It's always been the case that the apps tend to cater to women, and most of the features are developed specifically for women. If they didn't do this, there would be even less women on the apps. And I'm sure everyone would agree that closer to a 50-50 split of gender on dating apps would probably be the ideal. If you're a man, keep in mind there are issues that you just don't have to worry about. So if you can think about it a bit from the women's perspective, it can help you to understand these very real problems. The main reasons cited by women are lack of safety measures on the apps, leading to problems like harassment, catfishing, stalking, and unwanted advances. Another major problem is focus on superficial interactions, which reduce people to their physical attributes, and just a general difficulty that people seem to have with a genuine interaction, engaging in deeper conversation, and things that can lead to a meaningful connection. The way profiles are curated by the users can also lead to unrealistic expectations as people exaggerate or mislead people who view the profile about who it is that they actually are. In a related story from this year, 2026, where Match Group, who owns Tinder and Hinge and Match.com and Meetic and OkCupid and Plenty of Fish and Azar, reported earnings of $914 million, but also announced new security features including face scanning identity verification and improved match algorithms, promising improved user outcomes, whatever that means. So this sounds like the dating utopia they're creating is coming along nicely. Another article was advocating for more user rights, arguing that users of the software should have access to its algorithm so people could assess whether it is working to actually attempt to match people for relationships, or whether the algorithm is fueled by some other motive such as company profit or maximizing user time. They also want more assistance to help users create profiles that can attract the type of person they are looking for. Is it the responsibility of the dating app to help its users as much as possible to find true love? Let me know what you think in the comments. I would think it would be a good value for paid subscribers to have access to resources, data analytics, and even small courses that could help people who are willing to put in the effort to work towards whatever their dating goals are. Okay, last thing that I found. This one might be the most useful for some people. They interviewed 1,000 dating app users and got their opinion on pictures, what kinds people like and don't like. 40% say that heavily filtered or overly revealing photos on dating apps are off-putting. Other problems that make people lose interest are grainy or blurred images, 16%, heavily edited photos, 26%, and photos where it isn't clear what the person actually looks like, 28%. Pictures that people like are spontaneous, candid photos, self-care images, and just generally photos that reveal something about a person's personality. That's all I got. Good luck out there. Thanks for watching.